Cam Ward took his final steps to being the Tennessee Titans franchise quarterback this weekend. I'll break it all down on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland, Titans fans. On today's show, we got another full 7-round Tennessee Titans mock draft Monday. I'm going to go through different scenarios, different options for the Titans, and how best to attack this draft after drafting Cam Ward #1 overall. But we'll start with Cam Ward, who took his final steps this weekend towards becoming the Tennessee Titans franchise quarterback. Before we get into today's mock draft, I do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there. Tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one, because we are about to begin our 2025 Locked On Titans NFL Draft Preview Series. I'm going to go over like 180 to 200 different prospects, every single position, day 1 options, day 2 options, day 3 options, best fits for the Tennessee Titans. And we'll talk about some of those fits in today's mock draft. Do want to let you guys know that it's hard for me to do anything other than take Cam Ward #1 overall in these mock drafts. It just seems so likely to me. I feel so confident that that's the pick for the Tennessee Titans. And this weekend, on Friday specifically, the Tennessee Titans took their final step towards deciding whether Cam Ward is the guy. Now, I think they already know that he is the guy, but it's the final step of the process, and it was the private workout with the Tennessee Titans that Cam Ward had on Friday. The Tennessee Titans' entire contingent was there, just like they were at his pro day, and we're starting to hear from the Tennessee Titans organization that, you know, they're pretty close to having their answer as to what they're going to do, and Chad Brinker talked about that at the owners' meetings, the league meetings, over the weekend. Brinker said, quote, we are going to go through the whole thing, and I think probably here in 2 weeks, we're going to have a good idea of where things are headed. Now, we're not going to go out there and tell everybody, of course, and there's a chance a team calls and makes you stop for a second and think, hey, we might need to consider this. But all of this is part of being disciplined and being thorough. He said Chad Brinker said teams have been checking in. But typically those kinds of deals get done closer to the draft than they do now. No one's putting any names on the back of jerseys for a while. So what the Titans are telling you here is, if you get into the quotes, they're not going to tell everybody when they made their decision. There's a chance that a team could call and make you stop and think for a second. But he's already telling you right there, there's a chance a team could call and make us think over it. But the reality is the Tennessee Titans have all of the information they need. They've done the private workout. And we talked on Thursday's show last week, or Friday's show from last week, about what that private workout was important for. You give Cam Ward information at the beginning of the process, at the combine when we meet. Hey, this is a play we like to run. Hey, this is our terminology. Hey, if I call this play and do this, what does that mean to you? Well, now at the private workout, it's the quiz. The private workout is the exam at the end of the process. Hey, at the combine. Hey, at our 30 visit. Hey, at the pro day. We gave you our playbook. We gave you this sheet. We gave you this set of plays. So they did Cam Ward's private workout in Miami, and they're going to run him through, hey, what do you recall from our conversations? When I give you this terminology within our scheme, what does that mean? Hey, Cam Ward, what I want to see from you right now is I want to see you run X, X, and X, this play with this terminology. What does that mean to you? Okay, the X wide receiver is going to run a post. the Z wide receiver is going to come into motion, and then they're going to do a speed out. The slot wide receiver on the weak hand side is going to run a slot fade, whatever it happens to be. The Tennessee Titans want to ensure that Cam Ward is recalling all of the information that they gave him, that he's able to absorb some of the playbook that he's probably already been exposed to during meetings and conversations. So this is the last touch point for the Tennessee Titans. It's the last moment where they're like, okay, now we have all of the information that we could possibly have. We're ready to make that decision. Now, it's my opinion that the Tennessee Titans had a little more confidence in what they were going to do before they made it to this. This is confirmation. I've said it throughout the process. The film is the creation of your opinion. The process through the draft is the confirmation of that creation. That's what we're doing right now. So Cam Ward is my pick at number 1. No shock there. This is the final touch point. I mean, Brian Callahan had a few quotes over the weekend as well. I think he sat down with Jim Wyatt during the league meetings, and he says that they have a short list for number 1 for sure. The most elite players in the draft. That included Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. But I think at the end of the day, things are pretty clear, and we're hearing from all over the NFL, every single side. Yep, it feels pretty confident that Cam Ward's going number 1. And then you also hear, yep, feels pretty confident that the Tennessee Titans are going to stick and pick. So if they're confident that they're going to stick and pick and confident that Cam Ward's going to be the number 1 pick, and now the Tennessee Titans have all the information that they could possibly have to make that decision, and that is still the wind that flows through the air. Again, when I'm doing a mock draft and I'm picking number 1 overall, it's basically impossible for me to pick anything else other than Cam Ward. It just makes too much sense. I had a tweet over the weekend, and it was, when you're the Titans and you need a quarterback and you have Cam Ward who checks as many boxes as he does, well, it's hard to pass on that quarterback. It's just not something that you can do. So with that in mind, time to talk about the rest of the draft, because I have the Tennessee Titans making another trade, but I want to look at it from a different angle here. The Tennessee Titans told us they want to build through the trenches. So if the Tennessee Titans are going to build through the trenches after taking Cam Ward number 1 in the draft, what is that going to look like? I'm going to show you right now in today's Mock Draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, even who's going to cut down the nets. So I've been picking favorites all tournament long. I've been backing them with spreads, totals, game props. At the end of the day, the tournament ends up being chalk. And that's how I see it as well. And look at what we got on tap for the last weekend of the college basketball tournament. But remember, with games going on all the time, you can always get in on the action at FanDuel. The app is simple to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around. So make sure that you visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Once again, that's FanDuel.com. Let's continue today's Mock Draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Of course, we took Cam Ward number 1 overall after the Tennessee Titans got in their private workout with Cam Ward. They're going to have a private workout on Monday with Shedeur Sanders. I think they're going to be missing a couple of people based on folks at the league meetings, but they could easily take a plane and make it. So we'll probably get more information on Shedeur Sanders' private workout with the Titans after it happens on Monday. And I would imagine that on tomorrow's show, that's probably what we'll discuss is the information coming out of that. But we have Cam Ward at number 1, and now we get to pick number 35. And like taking Cam Ward number 1 overall, the truth is it's hard to envision a scenario where the Tennessee Titans don't trade down with 35 as well. We talked a couple of weeks ago about what a can't pass prospect would be at the top of the second round, like a Luther Burden, like an Emeka Egbuka, like a James Pierce Jr., like a Shamar Stewart, for example, like a Devin or Azaraku. Like, you can't pass Donovan Azaraku. You can't pass on those players if you have the opportunity to draft them at pick number 35. But in the mock draft that I'm doing right now, and quite honestly, in the Locked On NFL mock draft, which is going to come out soon, those players weren't there. The can't miss prospects, the can't pass prospects, not can't miss, but can't pass prospects at the top of the second round, well, the odds are that those folks aren't going to be there. That's why we call them can't pass, because if they happen to drop. So here's the way I'm looking at this. When I'm at pick number 35, there are two different pockets of players. At edge rusher and at wide receiver. I want to make sure that I get one player out of both pockets. All right. So at edge rusher, and these are the players that are available to me at pick number 35. At edge rusher, Landon Jackson, the big, huge, physical edge rusher out of Arkansas. Prince Umami, the speed, bend, length pass rusher out of Ole Miss. Braden Swinson, the polished, refined, experienced player out of LSU. JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State. Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State. Jared Ivey, another big, huge, physical edge rusher out of Ole Miss. Kyle Kennard. So out of the edge rushers remaining, I want one guy out of that pocket. And then at wide receiver, Jaden Higgins, Xavier Restrepo, Trey Harris, Jalen Noel, Jalen Royals, Kyle Williams, Savion Williams. I want somebody out of that pocket as well. To me, that's a clear pocket of day two wide receivers and a clear pocket of day two edge rushers. So I think the Tennessee Titans need to get one guy out of both of those. Now, one way to ensure that they can do it, because right now they have 35 and they have 103, and that's all we have in the top 105 picks. All right? You want top 100 picks. That's where you're going to get starters in the draft. You're supposed to get starters in the top 100. The Titans have pick 103. That's close enough. 103, yeah. But anyway, that's close enough. We got to maximize that. So a trade down makes the most sense. You have the Raiders at pick 37, the Jets at pick 42, the Saints at pick 40. All teams, all three of those teams, most likely won't get a quarterback in the first round, because it'll be Shedeur Sanders going to the Browns or going to the Giants. So if the Raiders, Jets, and Saints are all right there and hoping to get a quarterback early in the second round or high in the first round, the Titans are going to be in range to mortgage their pick away. And if they can get pick 40 and what do the Saints have? The Saints have 40 and 71. The Jets have 42 and 73. The Raiders have 37 and 71. And then the Saints are maybe 40 and 79, I think is what it is. The Saints have 40 and 79. I'm trying to remember other teams' draft picks off the top of my head. So give me a break, all right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the furthest spot from that. I'm going to go back to pick number 42. I'm going to do pick number 35 and pick number 120 for pick number 42 and pick number 73. So I'm sacrificing 120. But remember, we have 103, we have 141, we have 167, we have 178, we have 188. We have plenty of room. And we could execute a trade for Will Levis and probably get a fifth or a sixth round pick as well. If we want it this year, probably a sixth. If we want it next year, maybe a fifth. So we have enough at the end of the draft to give away 120 and secure an additional top 75 pick. So I'm going to slide down to pick number 42. And when I do that, the only player is Jack Beck, who came off the board. And I forgot to mention Beck a second ago in the pocket. He's in the pocket for sure, but he comes off the board. And other than that, everybody that we were looking at in the pockets that we talked about before are still available. I was half tempted to slide back even more, but I want to make sure that this is a realistic mock draft. So with pick number 42 in the second round, I want to build through the trenches. I'm going to edge rusher. I am making sure that I get one of these edge rushers, and I went with Princely Omami-Ellen out of Ole Miss, 23 years old, 6'4", 245 pounds, 34.25-inch arms. He has been incredibly productive his entire career at Ole Miss, constantly putting pressure on the quarterback. He uses a cross chop move that is going to be effective at the NFL level. All right. He has great bend off the edge. He is explosive. He needs to get better against the run. He needs to refine his pass rush moves outside of the cross chop. But this reminds me of CJ Stroud when he played against Georgia in the championship and started to use his mobility and his legs more. He didn't do it a ton in college, but we saw he was able to at the biggest stage. Princely Omami-Ellen against Georgia started using some other moves, and it proved that, hey, he can add an inside spin. He can add some counters to the bend that he has and the cross chop move that he has that he currently wins with. So we get a guy like Princely Omami-Ellen. We let him add some weight to get better as a run defender. We let him work on his pass rush profile and the variety of moves that he can offer to go along with what he already has. We use him as a situational pass rusher his rookie year, while Lorenzo Carter, Arden Key, and Draymond Jones play on early downs. And then by next year, we have a starting level edge rusher who has the ability, to be a top level pass rusher in the NFL. We're building through the trenches. That starts with pass rush and offensive line. So when we go 31 picks down after taking Princely Omami-Ellen, and we get to pick number 73 that we acquired in the trade, I'm sorry, folks, I'm going to continue building through the trenches, and I do not believe this player will be available at pick number 73 in the draft, and by God, if he is the perfect Tennessee Titan. I talked about it last week, and I'm here again. It's Wyatt Millam, the offensive lineman out of West Virginia. Size, the Tennessee Titans want to be big. 6'6", 315 pounds. Durable. Experienced. 2,600 snaps at the collegiate level. All he does is play football. He had incredible testing numbers at the combine for a guy his size. Incredible. Production. Durability, experience, testing, size. He has monstrous hands. Now, Wyatt Millam was an offensive tackle at West Virginia. He's going to be a guard and an interior player for the Titans long term because he's got 32.5-inch arms. But he's got huge hands and great size. At the Senior Bowl, Wyatt Millam played center, guard, and tackle. So, Wyatt Millam can be the long-term starting right guard for the Tennessee Titans when Kevin Zeitler is done after the year. He could potentially be your long-term starting center as well if Lloyd Cushenberry does not bounce back from the Achilles. He played offensive tackle in college. He's 6'6". He could play offensive tackle if you needed him to. You have an incredible sixth offensive lineman that will be a long-term starter and gives you versatility across the offensive line, who is durable, competitive, a mean streak, great testing numbers like Trey Harris, Jalen Noel, Jalen Royal, Savion Williams, Tez Johnson, Isaiah Bond, Torrey Holton, Kyle Williams, Mason Taylor, Vernon Broughton on the interior defensive line out of Texas, who I like a lot. We're all available. But we're building through the trenches. And often when you draft, you should be drafting a year ahead. Draft a year ahead. So look at the offensive line next year and say, I'm going to get a bona fide starter who can be an elite backup this year. We are not going to have the Tennessee Titans are one injury away from Nicholas Petit-Frere being a starting offensive tackle. The Tennessee Titans are one injury away from Corey Levin or Andrew Rupsich being a starting offensive lineman for the whole season. What if Lloyd Cushenberry were to, knock on wood, God forbid, what if Lloyd Cushenberry were to re-injure his Achilles during training camp and is out for the year? Who is starting at center all year? Corey Levin? I love Corey Levin as a spot backup, but he can't be a full-time expected starter. If you have Wyatt Millum, you have protection along the interior, you have protection at backup offensive tackle, and you have a long-term starting center or right guard going forward in the future. It is a home run selection for the Tennessee Titans, and anytime that it's available to me in the third round, I am going to take it. But we still don't have a wide receiver at this point, so that's the problem we have to fix now. Titans fans, let's cap off today's Mock Draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. So far, we drafted Cam Ward at number 1 after he had his final step to becoming the Tennessee Titans franchise quarterback with his private workout on Friday. Then we traded down in the second round. We drafted Princely Omamielen out of Ole Miss with our number 42 pick after a trade down. With pick number 73, we took Wyatt Millum, the versatile, experienced offensive lineman out of West Virginia. Now we're to pick number 103 for the Tennessee Titans, and we have to get a wide receiver. We have absolutely no choice at this point. We got to find a way. And remember, I talked about a pocket of wide receivers earlier in the draft that made sense. We had Jack Beck and Jaden Higgins and Xavier Restrepo and Trey Harris and Jalen Noel and Jalen Royals and Kyle Williams and Savion Williams. Isaiah Bond I would put in that group. Tez Johnson, another guy. But we're sitting there waiting for pick number 103 to show up. And we notice the pocket of wide receivers that we like is dwindling. And we get to pick number 100. There's pick 100, 101, 102, and 103. We're 103. And we're like, there is only one wide receiver left in our pocket. So we have Cam Williams, developmental, big physical offensive tackle out of Texas. I can see the Titans doubling up on offensive line here. Andrew Makuba, safety, I like. I don't think he'll really be here in real life, so I'm going to start to pass on him at 103. Makuba, not going to be there, I don't think. Charles Grant, Anthony Belton, Femi Oladipo, the edge rusher, who I think is going to go way higher than 100, who I really like out of UCLA. All available. But we need to get that wide receiver, and we need a wide receiver that's in our pocket. So I traded up from pick 103 to pick 100 with the San Francisco 49ers, and I gave them a 7th-round pick in next year's draft. The Titans have 2 6th-round picks next year because of the trade with the Rams. So I gave up a 7th-round pick in next year's draft and pick 103 to move up to pick 100 and take Kyle Williams out of Washington State. Kyle Williams, to me, reminds me a little bit of Robert Woods. Now, I think he's got a little bit more explosion to him than Robert Woods, like the Robert Woods Titans days. I'm talking about Robert Woods coming out of college. He's 5'10", 190, not elite size, but good size. 22 years old, incredible at the line of scrimmage, releasing and getting off press, which is critical at the NFL level. He can play X, Z, in the slot, versatility, and that's what the Titans need right now. If you're not going to get an elite wide receiver that could be a full-time slot or your big physical X or whatever, then you need someone who can do all of it. Someone who could be a utility player. And that's exactly what Kyle Williams can be. So at pick number 100, after trading up from 103 to 100, the Titans get the last wide receiver in their pocket. And if the Titans left their top 4 picks with Cam Ward, Princely Omamielen, Wyatt Millum, and Kyle Williams, that is an elite top 4. You have your quarterback of the future. You have an edge rusher. You have a starting offensive lineman for the next 5 years and an incredible, maybe the best backup you could have. And then you have a do-it-all versatile wide receiver who was productive in college. I mean, that's the best that the Tennessee Titans could hope for in their top 4 picks, to hit all of their biggest needs and players who can help right away. Huge. It's critical. But now we move to the last 4 picks in the draft. And I see a clear break here. Remember, I traded 120 with 35 to get 42 and 73. So we go from 103 and we drop all the way down to 141. And now we're just looking for either high-end upside or a high floor. Either a guy I can develop into a starter in day 3 or a guy who I know can come in and play a role right away. And that I'm looking for one or the other. And my last 4 picks, that's what I get. J.J. Pegas, the interior defensive lineman out of Ole Miss. 6'2", 320 pounds. He can rush on the interior. He can be a 5 technique and a base 3-4. He's a former tight end. So very versatile, very athletic. Look, he just moved to the defensive side of the ball in college. He needs a lot of refinement. He needs to be more physical. He needs to get off the line of scrimmage better. He needs to lower his pad level. He needs to play with his hands. But a guy with his athletic ability and his versatility and his size at pick number 141 in the 5th round, give me J.J. Pegas, and I'll take 2 guys off the Ole Miss defensive line with incredible physical talent, and I'll get the most out of them with good coaching. Give J.J. Pegas to Tracy Rocker. Let's see what happens. We are hitting the trenches. Then we move to the last 3 picks. We have 167, 178, and 188. I'm going with high floor guys. I'm going with Malachi Moore, safety out of Alabama. Tore his ACL, so you'd have to wait on him. But this is a guy who's been a team captain at Alabama. He's been durable. Brian Callahan talked about when he got hired that when he started in Cincinnati with Zach Taylor, they focused on getting guys from big-time programs who have been in big-time games because they set the culture. And a guy like Malachi Moore, just being in the building while you wait for him to recover from the ACL, I think you could have yourself a starter eventually. Pegas, JJ Pegas, not Pegas. Okay, we're working on pronunciations. Shout out Trey Phillips. Thank you. But with Malachi Moore, you get a great culture guy, a guy who can be a special teams contributor as soon as he's available, and a guy who I think is going to go way later than what his value would be because of the injury. So give me Malachi Moore at 167, and I'll take the risk and wait for him. I will and see what happens. And then 178, I went with Ollie Gordon, the running back at Oklahoma State. I've talked about Ollie Gordon over and over and over and over again. I mean, the Titans need a big bruising running back who runs with power, short yardage. That's what they need to go with Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. So I'm not breaking any news there. Good ability and pass protection as well. I like Ollie Gordon. Give me a big physical back on day 3 with one of these final picks. And then my last pick in the draft, pick number 188, I went with Jalen Lane. And he doesn't play with a lot of play strength, the wide receiver out of Virginia Tech, but God, he's got speed. And the Titans just need to get faster. So let's bring in Jalen Lane. Maybe they give him an opportunity to return kicks. Let's just bring in a speed wide receiver and see if we can hit on something late. So that's what I went with. A bunch of guys from good programs, big-time programs, who either give you a high ceiling with some development or come in and have a really high floor. So with that being said, that's going to do it for today's mock draft. Let me know your grade down below if you're watching on YouTube. Let me know your grade on Twitter at TicTacTitans. But that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.